1 in 4 adults has a liver that is storing fat right now. And most of them will never know it because their doctor is running the wrong tests. Let me tell you about Walter, 63 years old, retired engineer from Ohio. His annual blood work came back normal 2 years in a row. Glucose, normal. Cholesterol, borderline but acceptable. His doctor told him he was fine. What his doctor never checked was his liver fat or his fasting insulin. When Walter finally got an ultrasound and a full metabolic panel, his liver showed moderate steatosis, fat accumulation in the hepatic tissue, and his fasting insulin was nearly 3 times what it should have been. He wasn't sick, he just had a liver that had been par. I've spent over 2 decades in endocrinology and metabolic medicine, and in this video, I'm going to show you 10 specific foods backed by the research that support liver fat reduction, improve insulin sensitivity, and address the metabolic conditions that allow fatty liver to develop. I'll give you the mechanism behind each one, and I'll give you a practical protocol at the end that you can start this week. Most of what I'm about to share is not expensive, it is not complicated, but it does require understanding what's actually happening inside your liver and why the standard advice most people get completely misses the point. Let's start with food number 1, and I promise you, this one is in your kitchen right now. Food number 1 is olive oil. Before you think I already use olive oil, stay with me, because most people are using the wrong kind. And the dose matters more than you think. A 2014 review on diet and nutritional management in NAFLD, one of the most cited papers in the hepatic nutrition literature, found that monounsaturated fatty acids, the primary fat in extra virgin olive oil, have both preventive and therapeutic effects in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Here's the mechanism. Your liver handles fat through 2 main pathways. The first is lipogenesis, creating new fat from carbohydrates and excess calories. The second is beta oxidation, burning existing fat for energy. Olive oil's primary compound, oleic acid, than fat storage inside hepatic tissue. There's also an anti-inflammatory dimension. Fatty liver isn't just about fat. It involves cellular inflammation that, if left unaddressed, drives the condition from simple steatosis into more serious liver damage. Extra virgin olive oil contains oleocanthal, a compound to help interrupt that inflammatory cascade. Now the key point on quality, not all olive oil is the same. The research points consistently to extra virgin, cold-pressed, unrefined as the form that delivers these benefits. Refined olive oil has significantly lower polyphenol content. You're just adding calories, 2 to 3 tablespoons per day, used as your primary cooking and dressing oil. That's the target. Here's the simplest implementation. Replace whatever refined seed oil you're currently cooking with, canola, vegetable, sunflower, with extra virgin olive oil. Low to medium heat cooking, salad dressings, done. Simple substitution, consistent use. And when you combine olive oil with food number 4 on this list, the effects on liver fat and insulin sensitivity compound significantly. I'll connect those dots when we get there. Food number 2 is fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines, herring. The same 2014 NAFLD nutritional. The mechanism here is one of the reviews specifically identifies omega-3 fatty acids as having both preventive and therapeutic effects in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Most well characterized in the entire nutritional science literature. Here's what EPA and DHA, the active omega-3s from marine sources, actually do inside the liver. Liver contains receptors called PPAR. Think of these as master switches for fat metabolism. EPA and DHA activate these receptors, which tells the liver to increase fat burning and reduce fat synthesis. At the same time, they suppress a transcription factor called SREBP1C, which drives the de novo lipogenesis process, meaning the conversion of excess dietary carbohydrates into stored fat. So you're working both sides simultaneously. Less new fat being made, more existing fat being cleared. There's also a direct anti-inflammatory effect. The liver in fatty liver disease is not just fat-loaded, it's inflamed. Omega-3 fatty acids generate a class of molecules called resolvins and protectins. These are resolution mediators. They don't just suppress inflammation, they actively help end it. One important note on source. The research is clear that EPA and DHA from marine sources are what matter here. ALA, the plant-based omega-3 in flaxseed and walnuts, converts to EPA and DHA at very low rates in the human body. If you eat fish, aim for 2 to 3 servings of fatty fish per week, 3 to 4 ounces per serving. If fish isn't part of your diet, a quality fish oil supplement, at least 1 to 2 grams of combined EPA and DHA per day is a reasonable alternative. Look for triglyceride form. It absorbs better than ethyl ester. I want to tell you something I've seen clinically. Patients with elevated liver enzymes who add just 1 to 2 more servings of fatty fish per week often see measurable changes in ALT and AST within 8 to 12 weeks. Not every patient, but consistently enough that it's the first dietary conversation I have when someone presents with early hepatic steatosis. Food number 3 surprises almost everyone, coffee. Not coffee loaded with sugar and flavored syrup. Black coffee, or The same comprehensive NAFLD nutrition review identifies coffee as one of the protective dietary factors against non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And the mechanism is specific enough that it's worth understanding. Coffee contains a compound called chlorogenic acid. It appears to inhibit hepatic lipid accumulation by reducing the expression of genes involved in fat synthesis inside the liver. Coffee also contains diterpene compounds, cafestol and cahueol, evidence for antifibrotic properties, though filtered coffee still retains most of the benefit through chlorogenic acid alone. Beyond the mechanism, observational data consistently shows that regular coffee drinkers have lower levels of liver enzymes, ALT, AST, and GGT, independent of body weight. That's a meaningful finding. It suggests the benefit. It isn't simply because coffee drinkers eat better or weigh less. The compounds appear to act directly on the liver, 2 to 3 cups per day. This is the range the data supports. The benefit appears to plateau beyond that. Here's the catch, and it's an important one. If your coffee contains added sugar, especially in the form of flavored syrups or sweetened creamers, you may be canceling out the benefit entirely. Sugar-sweetened beverages are, based on the evidence, among the most potent dietary drivers of hepatic fat accumulation. I'll explain exactly why when we get to food 9. But for now, black coffee or with a small amount of plain milk. That is the version with the evidence behind it. Food number 4, walnuts and tree nuts more broadly. Here's where the combination I mentioned with olive oil comes together. Walnuts are unusual among nuts because they contain a meaningful amount of ALA, alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3. They also contain arginine, which is a precursor to nitric oxide, and a range of polyphenols that function as hepatic antioxidants. But the mechanism I want to focus on is this. Walnuts help address de novo lipogenesis from 2 directions simultaneously. First, the fat profile, predominantly polyunsaturated, shifts hepatic fat metabolism toward oxidation and away from storage. And insulin is the primary hormonal driver of de novo lipogenesis. Less insulin means the liver is receiving less signal to manufacture new fat from it. When you eat walnuts alongside olive oil, as you would in a Mediterranean-style meal, you are combining a MUFA-rich fat that promotes hepatic fat oxidation with a fiber and polyphenol source that reduces the insulin signal driving hepatic fat synthesis. That is a coherent, mechanistically grounded combination, not a coincidence. 1 ounce per day, roughly 14 walnut halves, raw or dry roasted without added oil or sugar. And if you're thinking, this is starting to sound a lot like the Mediterranean diet, you're right. Olive oil, fatty fish, walnuts. That is the fat composition profile of the most studied dietary pattern for hepatic steatosis in the literature. There's a reason for that. I'll bring it together shortly. Food number 5, green tea, coffee. And green tea work through distinct mechanisms. There's no reason to choose between them. The NAFLD nutritional review identifies green tea, specifically its catechin compounds, primarily EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, as a potentially protective factor against hepatic fat accumulation. To manufacture new fat from dietary precursors. At the same time, it activates something called AMPK. When it is active, it promotes fat oxidation and suppresses lipid synthesis. AMPK is sometimes called a master metabolic switch, improvements in hepatic lipid content and insulin sensitivity. Green tea is also a source of dietary antioxidants, and that matters because fatty liver involves significant. The catechins in green tea are among the most studied dietary antioxidants in this context. Practical note, catechin content in commercial green teas varies enormously. The research that shows benefit uses specific catechin doses, typically 400 to 600 milligrams of EGCG equivalent per day. 2 to 3 cups of properly brewed loose leaf or quality bagged green tea can get you into this range. Bottled green tea drinks, which are typically low in catechins and often high in added sugar, will not. Brew it yourself, 3 to 5 minutes. Water just off the boil, every day. 2 cups of black coffee in the morning. 2 cups of green tea in the afternoon. That combination covers 2 of the most consistently protective dietary patterns in the hepatic fat literature. It costs almost nothing. It takes 5 minutes to prepare. There is no excuse not to do this. Before food number 6, I want to flag something. I'm going to explain in a few minutes why one specific type of food is more dangerous to your liver than almost anything else in the Western diet. Most people consume it every single day, and it is not what you think it is. But first, food number 6, and this one comes from a specific study I want to walk you through. A 2023 cross-sectional study of 3,563 adults examined the associations between specific food items and the risk of metabolic dysfunction-associated fatty liver disease, adjusted for physical activity, smoking, and alcohol. And they found that tofu consumption was inversely associated with MFLD risk. People who ate tofu regularly had the mechanism involves soy protein specifically. The same 2014 NAFLD nutritional review identifies increased soy protein. Soy protein appears to reduce hepatic cholesterol synthesis and increase LDL receptor expression in the liver. Liver clear lipoproteins more efficiently. Soy also contains isoflavones, with some evidence for improving insulin sensitivity. And as I keep coming back to, reducing insulin signaling is one of the primary mechanisms for reducing de novo lipogenesis, the liver's own fat manufacturing process. Processed meats and high-fat animal proteins with soy protein sources, they're simultaneously removing a dietary input associated with higher NAFLD risk and adding one associated 2 to 3 servings per week. Tofu stir-fried in extra virgin olive oil with cruciferous vegetables is one of the most hepatically targeted meals you can build from simple ingredients. I'll explain why when we get there. Food number 7, leafy green vegetables. Spinach, kale, arugula, Swiss bark. Naturally occurring nitrates the body converts to nitric oxide. Nitric oxide has well-documented effects on vascular function, but it also appears to play a role in hepatic fat metabolism. Research suggests nitric oxide signaling improves mitochondrial function in liver cells, which means the liver becomes more efficient at burning fat rather than storing it. But the more important reason leafy greens belong on this list is choline. Choline is a nutrient that is essential for the fat export from the liver. Here's why that matters. The liver doesn't just accumulate fat passively, it also has a system for shipping fat out. That system depends on VLDL particles, very low density lipoproteins. And VLDL synthesis requires choline. Export machinery is compromised. Fat accumulates inside hepatocytes, liver cells, not because more is coming in, but because less is getting out. Choline deficiency is one of the most mechanistically clear dietary contributors to hepatic steatosis in the entire scientific literature, and most people over 60 are not getting enough. Leafy greens are one of the primary dietary sources. 1 to 2 cups per day. With a fat source, olive oil is ideal to support absorption of fat-soluble micronutrients. This is a salad, a bowl of sautéed spinach, nothing complicated. Food number 8. And I want to address the reputation problem directly because this one has been unfairly maligned. Eggs. The reason eggs belong on this list is the same reason leafy greens belong on this list: choline. One large egg contains approximately 147 milligrams of choline. The adequate intake for adults, eggs, gets you roughly halfway there. Combined with leafy greens and other choline-containing foods, hitting that target is achievable. Now, the concern that eggs raise, the science here has moved substantially in the last 15 years. The current evidence indicates that for most adults, dietary cholesterol from whole eggs has a modest effect on LDL and raises HDL proportionally. The net cardiovascular impact in the general population appears to be. The exception may be individuals with familial hypercholesterolemia or certain genetic variants. If that applies to you, discuss with your physician before making changes. For liver health specifically, the choline in eggs is among the most bioavailable dietary sources we have. 2 to 3 eggs, 3 to 5 times per week, as part of this broader dietary pattern, is what the evidence supports. And here's the practical reality that I always come back to with patients. Eggs are inexpensive, they're fast to prepare, they're genuinely satiating. If you're trying to build a sustainable dietary pattern around liver health, those properties matter enormously. The foods you'll actually eat consistently are the ones that work. I want to pause here because I know what some of you are thinking with me for food number 9. Because the answer to why that happens is almost certainly what I'm about to explain. Food number 9. Fiber-rich foods, beans, lentils, chickpeas, oats. And here's the answer to the question I just raised. Here's the single most important thing I will tell you in this entire video. The primary driver of fatty liver disease in Western dietary patterns is not dietary fat. It is not cholesterol. It is not even total calories. It is fructose, specifically in the form of sugar-sweetened beverages, fruit juice, and processed foods with added sugar. The 2023 cross-sectional study of 563 adults found that soft drinks and sugar-sweetened beverages had the strongest positive studied, an odds ratio of over 1.5 after adjusting for all confounders. And here is why. Mechanistically, fructose is metabolized almost exclusively in the liver. Glucose, the other component of table sugar, is distributed to muscles, the brain, red blood cells. But fructose bypasses the primary regulatory checkpoint of glycolysis and enters the fat synthesis pathway at a downstream point. The liver converts excess fructose into fat through de novo lipogenesis at a rate that has no real parallel in human metabolism for any other common food compound. This is what a 2002 review in the Proceedings of the Nutrition Society documented regarding how dietary macronutrient composition, specifically carbohydrate overload, drives changes in hepatic fat synthesis. Now here is where fiber becomes critical. Soluble fiber, found in oats, beans, lentils, and legumes, forms a gel in the digestive tract. That gel slows glucose absorption. It blunts the postprandial insulin spike. It reduces the net glycemic load of the meal. And a lower insulin response directly reduces the signal for de novo lipogenesis inside the liver. Soluble fiber also feeds specific gut bacteria, Bifidobacterium, lactobacillus. Butyrate has direct anti-inflammatory effects at the gut-liver axis. The gut and the liver are in continuous biochemical communication. A healthier gut microbiome means less inflammatory signaling reaching hepatic tissue. Target: 25 to 35 grams of total fiber per day, at least 10 to 15 grams from soluble sources. A cup of cooked lentils has roughly 16 grams of fiber. A bowl of rolled oats has roughly 4 grams. This is achievable. And the other change that follows from understanding this mechanism: eliminate sugar-sweetened beverages, not as a general wellness suggestion, as a direct liver intervention based on the best available evidence. If you do one thing after watching this video, make it that. Food number 10, cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. I saved this one for last because the mechanism is one of the most interesting in this entire list. Cruciferous vegetables contain a compound called sulforaphane. It's not present in the raw vegetable, it's generated when you chew or chop it. An enzyme called myrosinase converts a precursor compound into active sulforaphane on contact. And sulforaphane activates a pathway called NRF2, nuclear factor erythroid 2 related factor antioxidant response. When it's activated, it switches on a cascade of endogenous antioxidant and detoxification enzymes inside. Oxidative stress and cellular damage. NRF2 activation has been shown in preclinical studies to reduce hepatic lipid accumulation. Now, an important preparation note: sulforaphane is heat sensitive. High heat roasting significantly degrades, or eating cruciferous vegetables raw preserves significantly more of the active compound. If you prefer them cooked, there's a workaround. Add a small amount of raw mustard seed or fresh arugula to your cooked broccoli or cauliflower. Both contain active myrosinase that compensates for the enzyme destroyed by heat. This is a small detail, but it matters for getting the benefit. 1 to 2 cups, 3 to 4 times per week. Steamed broccoli with extra virgin olive oil and lemon. That is simultaneously sulforaphane activation, oleic acid for hepatic fat oxidation, and vitamin C supporting the and mechanistically targeted at 3 different pathways driving fatty liver disease. Before the protocol, I want to give you the framework that ties all 10 foods together, because without it, this list may feel like 10 separate tips. It isn't. Here's what's happening inside a liver with fatty liver disease. Fat accumulates when more is being synthesized than can be exported or burned. The liver has 3 problems simultaneously: too much fat being manufactured, not enough fat being shipped out, and impaired capacity to burn what's there. The primary driver of excess synthesis is dietary fructose, specifically sugar-sweetened beverages and processed foods with added sugar. The liver converts fructose to fat at rates with no metabolic equivalent. This is the de novo lipogenesis pathway. The secondary driver is chronically elevated insulin. Insulin promotes fat storage and suppresses fat oxidation, even while fasting, keeping the liver in a continuous low-grade fat-storing state. Now look at the 10 foods through this lens. Olive oil, fatty fish, and walnuts provide fats that support hepatic fat oxidation and reduce inflammatory signaling. Coffee and green tea contain compounds at the enzymatic level. Tofu and soy protein reduce lipid synthesis and improve hepatic LDL clearance. Leafy greens and eggs provide choline, essential for the VLDL machinery that ships fat out of the liver. Fiber-rich foods blunt the insulin response, feed a protective gut microbiome, and directly displace the sugar-sweetened beverage pattern that drives de novo lipogenesis. And cruciferous vegetables activate the liver's own NRF2-mediated antioxidant defense system. This is a mechanistically coherent dietary strategy targeting all 3 root causes of hepatic fat accumulation. Excess synthesis. I would implement this week by week if I were starting from scratch. Week 1, 3 changes only. Replace all refined seed oils with extra virgin olive oil. Eliminate sugar-sweetened beverages entirely, including fruit juice, which has a fructose profile nearly identical to soda. Add 1 cup of cooked legumes per day, lentils, beans, chickpeas, in whatever form you'll actually eat them. That's it for week 1. Don't try to implement all 10 foods at once. Behavioral change has a cognitive cost. Overloading that cost is why dietary interventions fail in clinical practice, not because people lack willpower, but because the transition was designed to be unsustainable. Week 2, add 2 servings of fatty fish and begin either 2 cups of black coffee or 2 cups of green tea daily, whichever fits your routine. Both, if possible. Week 3, add cruciferous vegetables 3 times per week and 1 ounce of walnuts as your primary daily snack. By week 4, you are eating a pattern that addresses all 10 mechanisms I've described, without radical disruption to your existing routine. The timeline for measurable change? Hepatic steatosis can change meaningfully within 8 to 12 weeks with sustained dietary modification. That is not a long time. The liver is one of the most metabolically responsive organs in the body. ALT and AST levels, if elevated, typically begin to normalize within this window. Fasting triglycerides, a downstream marker of hepatic fat export, also improve. And fasting insulin tracks hepatic steatosis closely enough that it is, in my view, the single most useful number to monitor alongside liver enzymes. If you don't know your fasting insulin level, I'll address that in a moment. I want to close with something I say to every patient who sits across from me with elevated liver enzymes and a new diagnosis of fatty liver disease. This is not a sentence, it is a signal. For the majority of people with early to moderate fatty liver disease, meaningful dietary and metabolic change produces measurable hepatic improvement. The liver has a regenerative capacity that it responds. What it needs is sustained input, not a 2-week experiment. Consistency over 8 to 12 weeks, maintained as a pattern rather than a temporary protocol, is what the evidence supports. The 10 foods I've described today are a starting point. The broader principle is this: a dietary pattern, high in fiber, rich in omega-3 and monounsaturated fats, low in added fructose, and built around whole foods. That pattern, consistently followed, is the most evidence-supported dietary approach to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease we currently have. No prescription required. If someone in your life has been told their liver enzymes are elevated, or if they've been diagnosed with fatty liver and haven't been given a clear dietary roadmap, share this video with them. This is exactly the information that doesn't make it into a 15-minute doctor's appointment. But it should. And if you've never had your fasting insulin tested, not where just your fasting glucose, but your actual insulin level. Type insulin in the comments right now. I want to know how many of you have ever had that number checked. Because the same insulin resistance driving fatty liver is operating silently in the background of nearly every metabolic condition